How's it going, Rogues Gallery, and welcome to another Flesh and Blood video. With the release of Arcane Rising Unlimited Edition just around the corner, this is not an unlimited box, this is a limited box, but with the release of Arcane Rising Unlimited Edition just around the corner, a lot of new players are asking themselves, should I pick up Arcane Rising or should I pick up Welcome to Rathe? So in this video, we're going to talk about which box you should pick up, Arcane Rising or Welcome to Rathe, if you are a new player. And we'll also talk a little bit about Crucible of War as well, because I know some folks are going to ask about this too. Before we get started, I do want to give a couple quick shout outs. If you'd like to pick up some Flesh and Blood singles, definitely check out Fab Foundry, links in the description down below. I do have an affiliate link with them. They have an excellent service, really great pricing, and they are, local to me from the Portland, Oregon area, so they have excellent pricing to, the United States. If you're from Canada, definitely check out Red Riot Games, so you don't have to pay for that, international shipping. They're excellent folks. I do have an affiliate link with them as well in the description down below. But without further ado, let's get on with today's main topic. So both Welcome to Rathe and Arcane Rising are very similar sets. They're both very large sets that focus on 4 heroes. So you actually can't go wrong in which one you pick. It's just all determined on which heroes you like, because either one of these boxes will give you a good foundation to start playing Flesh and Blood. The same cannot be said of Crucible of War. This is an entirely supplementary set. I would not recommend picking this one up if you are a new player and you haven't had any cards or decks yet. You will not be able to build a deck with the cards in here unless you already have a deck and some cards to work with. This is great, like a second or third box purchase if you want to enhance the other stuff that you already have, because this one actually has support for every single hero class in the game currently, but it's not a good place to start. So like I said, both Arcane Rising and Welcome to Rathe are fantastic places to start. So let's just talk about, the heroes inside and whether you would like to pick one up or not, because that's really the determining factor here. If it has a hero that you think is really cool that you would like to try, then I would recommend picking up that particular box. So for example, for Welcome to Rathe, it has Bravo, the Guardian class, and Bravo is a kind of like a slow, heavy-hitting, controlling style deck. He really likes to build up for a single massive swing, a lot of resource-intensive cards, and he has also a lot of controlling aura style cards. Auras are cards that stay on the battlefield, and they have various effects like reducing damage or drawing an extra card at the next turn or something like that. There's also Katsu the Ninja, which is basically like death by 1,000 cuts. Ninja is really all about doing a bunch of tiny little attacks, all in the same turn. So if you really like doing, multiple combo attacks, if you're a Storm player in Magic, for example, Katsu would be really great because you can do 2 weapon attacks and then chain that into an attack with Go Again and then, another combo attack. And there's a lot of cool attack chains you can do with the Ninja class. So if you like, attacking a lot multiple times in a turn, Ninja is for you. There's also Dorinthia with the Warrior class, my personal favorite of all of the heroes and classes from Welcome to Rathe. The Warrior class is all about her weapon, pumping up her weapon, attacking multiple times with her weapon. You can kind of go wide and do other attacks, not just your weapon attacks. I mean, a lot of decks will, but that's what Dorinthia is all about, powering up her Dawn Blade and getting in for some really sweet weapon attacks. Warrior in general is kind of more of an aggro style deck, but to be honest, you can kind of do almost anything with almost any hero in Flesh and Blood, depending on how you build your deck. I'm just kind of giving you the general rundown of, kind of what they do to keep this video a little bit shorter. Last but not least for Welcome to Rathe is Reinhardt the Brute. Very interesting class. There's a lot of random elements here. So if you like rolling the dice, literally rolling the dice, then Reinhardt is for you. He also has a lot of really heavy hitting attacks. He also likes to, remove cards from your opponent's hand. It's a really interesting deck and a really interesting play style. You got, the hand removal aspect, the dice rolling aspect, a lot of heavy hitting attacks. Most Brute decks have attacks that deal 6 or more damage, just to, work with all the mechanics of Brute. So yeah, if you want to hit heavy and do some weird mechanics, Brute's for you. Next up, let's talk about Arcane Rising. There's some really interesting heroes in Arcane Rising. Some of them aren't quite as good as other heroes, and that's okay. They will get more support in the future, and hopefully they will become better. So let's talk about one of those right now with Azalea the Ranger. I really like this class. I think it's really flavorful and interesting. She kind of knocks arrows into the arsenal and then fires them off. You can't just, play them and attack with them. You have to kind of set them up because, she uses a bow. You have to set the bow, to fire it off. I think it's really cool, but it's kind of got some it's not quite as good as a lot of the other classes, let's just say. But it is kind of cool in her mechanics. She has a lot of on-hit mechanics. Think of it kind of like Hate Bears from Magic the Gathering, which means she'll have effects where it hits your opponent and then it like debilitates them and somehow, you know, makes their cards cost more for the next turn, make them take damage when they play cards their next turn, that kind of stuff. So it's actually a really interesting class and one that I really hope gets better in the future because I think it's really cool. Next up is Kano the Wizard, probably the most different class than all the other ones because for Wizard, you really don't want to be running any attack actions. You probably can, but it really doesn't synergize with that. You really want to play a lot of like non-attack actions that do arcane damage, and that's kind of what you want to do. And there's a couple ways to do this, but most people will build up to a single heavy hitting turn and then kind of like duplicate that over the course of a match. So you'll have like several turns where you chain spells that pump other spells and then just do like a big heavy hitting attack. Kano is, I would say, yet to be truly figured out, but once he does, he's going to be very, very powerful. Just a very interesting hero in general, I think. I would also say he's probably one of the most difficult heroes to play in Flesh and Blood. Next up is Dash the Mechanologist, a very good hero and class. Mechanologist can do kind of a couple different things. You can go with a boost strategy where you attack a whole bunch of times, kind of similar to Ninja, but not quite like Ninja, but still kind of like Ninja, where you boost a bunch of times and then attack multiple times with your weapon. You can also build up a very, very heavy controlling deck where you have a lot of defense reactions, a lot of defensive cards, and then you just kind of ping them out over time with your weapon, getting like multiple attacks with your weapon. It also features like Mechanologist items to kind of like enhance what you're doing. You know, it's got your tinkery stuff. So Mechanologist is definitely one of the top tier classes. And if you're into that kind of playstyle, then, you know, Mechanologist and Dash is for you. And finally, we have Viserai, the Rune Blade, my favorite class, or maybe my second favorite class. I think Warrior and Rune Blade are my two favorite classes currently. Rune Blade mixes physical damage with arcane damage, and the way they do that is they build up rune chants, and then when you would do an attack, all of the rune chants kind of explode all at once and deal damage to your opponent. It's kind of easy to defend against, so you really want to build up a lot of rune chants. There's a couple ways to build this deck, and that's true, for, like I said, for every other deck, every other hero, and every other class that I've talked about. But Rune Blade in specific, a lot of people think, oh, just build up to be one turn kill style deck. You don't have to do that. In fact, I'm not sure if that deck's very good. You can do like an aggro, go wide Rune Blade deck where you do like a bunch of attacks every single turn, or you can kind of do like a controlling, which is my favorite, a controlling Rune Blade style deck where you build up to like a big attack and then another big attack and trying to finish your opponent off with like a third or fourth really, really big attack, kind of like comboing it with like Arknight Ascendancy and that kind of stuff. And the control aspects of a deck like that would just be like, you'd be playing a lot of like defensive cards and a lot of like cards that kind of stall the game out a little bit while you build up your rune chant pile to blast it off. And then you do the same thing over and over again until you kind of like whittle down your opponent. And so I would say that is the main determining factor when deciding if you want to go with Welcome to Rathe or Arcane Rising. There is one other thing I want to talk about though, and that's kind of like the generic cards in these boxes. If you have no idea which one you want, if you saw all of those heroes and you're like, I don't know, man, like I could go with any of them, I will say that the generic legendary card in Welcome to Rathe is better than the generic legendary card in Arcane Rising here. They're both fantastic and played in a lot of decks. The generic legendary in Arcane Rising is the Arcanite Skullcap, which is a very, very good defensive piece, whereas the legendary in Welcome to Rathe is the Fyendal's Spring Tunic, which is a really, really good resource over time card. It's a more valuable card, it's used in more decks, but honestly, the Arcanite Skullcap is still a very good card. So if you decided to go with the Arcane Rising, you still have the chance to pull a very, very sweet generic equipment that you can kind of put in any of your decks. Well, almost any of your decks. It's just really, really good all-around defensive piece. Whereas the Spring Tunic also can go in any of your decks, just a really, really solid card. So to be completely honest, you really can't go wrong with either of these sets. If you're just like, I have no idea which one I want to do, I would recommend the Welcome to Rathe. The classes are a little bit easier to play. There's that Fyendal Spring Tunic, there's Enlightened Strike, there's the Fyendal's Tome or Tome of Fyendal. All those are really, really good. But, Arcane Rising still also has really good cards. Like it's got Command and Conquer in it as well, which is a very, very highly played and a very excellent Majestic. So like I said, you really can't go wrong. They're both fantastic. It's just kind of your personal preference on which hero you want to play. And that's gonna do it for today's Flesh and Blood video. If you like the video, then maybe leave a like, maybe comment, maybe even subscribe, or check out my Patreon. If you'd like to support me directly, I do have some tiers on there where I give cards back to you. I have a tier where I give like random cards, like rares and whatnot back to you, as well as a tier where I give random booster packs back to you as kind of like a thank you for supporting me. Let me know in the comments down below if you are picking up Arcane Rising or Welcome to Rathe, or even both, because, you know, they're all excellent. I really like both of the sets. I think they're fantastic. You know, Flesh and Blood as a game is so good. It's just so good. But anyway, I am rambling long enough. I'll see you next time for some more card game content. Have a good one all. I'll see you later.